What is it about us that not only expects, but almost wants everything we experience in life to be difficult? Too many of us have that life is hard mentality ingrained within us. We somehow look at it as if everything in our lives being challenging somehow earns us a badge of honor. It's almost as if it's a reason or an opportunity to pat ourselves on the back or maybe an excuse, just in case we quit or we don't quite get the results we were expecting. But the fact is, almost everything that we want to accomplish in life can actually be made quite simple. So if you're ready to give up the life is hard mentality and add some ease and simplicity to your life, join us on Life Design for the Simplicity Mindset podcast episode. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe now so you can join us on every episode. We truly appreciate it. And be sure to engage in the comments section of your favorite platform for your chance to be invited as a guest on one of our episodes. Welcome back to the Life Design Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Borland, aka Coach Michael. Today, we're going to unravel the perceived complexity and difficulty of achievement. Yes, I emphasized perceived. And we're going to take that false belief and turn it on its head. To do so, I'm going to guide you through three distinct areas of this phenomenon, and we'll cover three of the most common reasons that we embrace hardship, in much of our lives. We'll discuss some of the psychology behind why we do this, and we're actually going to cover a few tips for how you can change your beliefs regarding what is and isn't actually difficult. And the goal here today is that with a little bit of understanding, you'll begin to reap the rewards of embracing simplicity rather than difficulty moving forward. So first, we want some understanding of why we tend to expect and at times almost want to experience difficulty. Reason number one is human nature and its connection to challenges. It's our nature as humans to anticipate challenges. However, we've also been conditioned to believe that value comes from some sort of struggle, that true success must somehow be hard won, right? That it has to be difficult. But why is that? Why do we choose to believe everything has to be difficult? It is a choice, and we're going to fix that today. In part, it's because society celebrates the overworked hero, right? We see it in all the movies and all the shows, and this makes us tend to think that it's the only path to achieving anything that's worthwhile. Most of us know the saying, nothing worthwhile comes easy, right? I'm sorry. That's a bunch of BS. So reason number two, which is something we just mentioned briefly, is cultural conditioning. Our culture here in the West, and many cultures around the world, often glorify the struggle, even more so than the person. But in today's world, we should be questioning this narrative. What is it that we equate excessive busyness and excessive struggle to success? Why is that? We actually tend to wear our stress and our struggles. We wear them like a badge of honor. And we do it as if ease or simplicity is somehow synonymous with laziness, which is a complete fallacy. I mean, look, if we're honest, think about it. If we're honest with ourselves, the person who accomplishes the same goal or the same level of attainment with more ease, they were actually more successful, weren't they? Think about it. Share your thoughts on that in the comments. So reason number three is we do this because it's a self-defense mechanism. Okay. The insight into this reason is that if we predict something, that something will be challenging for us, we actually have the opportunity to prepare for that worst case scenario. But this expectation is often just a safety net, right? It gives us an out just in case we fail or we don't quite hit those results that either we or others were expecting. I mean, if it's supposed to be hard, then it's okay if we fail or we don't, hit the mark, right? Well, that's what we tell ourselves. That's what we tell others. That's what other people tell us. And it just simply gives us an excuse to back down or to back out if we get overwhelmed or if we just can't get it done. And yes, I accept, I admit this is a very hard pill to swallow for many people, myself included, when we're just having a discussion about it because we're not in the heat of the moment. But regardless of it being a little hard on our egos, it's also a fact that's way too common. Okay, let's look at some psychology behind why we brace for or expect difficulty in so many areas of our lives. One aspect is what's known as negativity bias. This is where, as humans, we have a natural tendency to pay more attention to negative experiences than we do to positive ones. And quite frankly, this isn't always a bad thing. It's actually a survival mechanism within us. And you've likely heard of it before. The typical explanation is, our ancestors needed to be more attuned with potential dangers and threats in their environment to survive. And thus, as humans, we evolved with this innate need to be cautious or to be alert to certain types of risks. But in today's day and time, this often manifests as an expectation for difficulty or hardship or challenge, which in today's day and time often manifests as an expectation of difficulty or challenges or hardships because we don't have the same physical threats in the world that we used to. Not quite the same. We have some, but they're different. So another psychological aspect that we briefly touched on was self-protection. And that's expecting things to be difficult. It can be a way to protect ourselves. But in this case, we're referencing emotionally. So if we prepare for the worst case scenario, then we might be less disappointed if things go off track, if they don't go well or the way we planned them. Using this, self-defense mechanism, it can lower our emotional stakes when we engage into something that may result in a difficult challenge or what we perceive as, and I'm doing air quotes for those that are only listening, as a failure. If it may result in a failure, right? We're not so emotionally attached to it. So there's another psychological aspect that we want to get some understanding on, and it's what's termed as learned helplessness. And this occurs when an individual expects to have no control or limited control over the outcome of a situation based on past experiences. Okay, that's the key to learned helplessness. If you've repeatedly faced difficult or uncontrollable situations throughout life or over a certain period of time, you may have developed a hypersensitive expectation that future, or in this case, current experiences will be just as difficult, just as challenging, even if there's no current proof that that's the case. Because again, these are learned, meaning we're looking to the past to determine what the risks are in this situation. And the final psychological aspect that we want to look at is what we call control and predictability. And this is bracing for this is where bracing for difficulty or for challenges helps us feel like we have some level of control, okay? Even if it's an unpredictable situation. which we've all experienced quite a bit of lately, right? The last couple of years, there's been a lot of unpredictable situations that have happened. And so by anticipating these challenges, we tend to plan and prepare, which provides us a sense of predictability, right? What do we say this psychological aspect was? Control and predictability. So by doing this, we we allow ourselves to feel that we have some level of control. We allow ourselves to feel or to sense that there's some type of predictability within the situation, or you know um, over some aspect of it that we might otherwise feel uncertainty about. And as we all know, certainty and control are two things that are extremely important just in the overall human psyche. So when we stop and we consider, the reasons that we expect difficulty in life, and combine that with some of the psychology that's behind it, it becomes actually easy to see that expecting this difficulty, it's actually a combination of a few things. We have the innate psychological tendencies, and those are designed for our survival, be it physical, emotional, so on and so forth. Then we mix those with learned experiences, with emotional self protection, and with cultural influences. And all of these, they've conditioned us to both expect and, again, at times almost want challenges in our lives, even in areas where it's not necessary, where it legitimately has no place. And the reality is, these are all limiting beliefs that we've taken on, that we've acquired. So let's look at some tips for how to overcome these limiting beliefs. And we're going to start with a radical thought. And that is this: challenges, difficulties, they can be reframed. What do I mean by that? Well, reframing is a tool that we use in NLP. It's used in many types of therapies. And ultimately what it says, what it means is that these challenges or difficulties, or maybe we want to call them complexities that we expect, they can be uncomplicated, meaning demystified or simplified. Okay? It's very similar to goal chunking, if you've ever heard of that. Breaking it down, breaking the challenge down or the experience down into smaller bits, smaller steps or parts. And when we do that, they become less daunting, okay? They don't feel as challenging. They feel more achievable, like something that we can handle. And that's part of the goal of looking at that. But that can be a challenging thing to consider. How do I reframe a challenge? Because it's in our mind. And that leads us into the next tip, which is the power of expectation. Okay, I'm confident most of you have heard this before, but expectations are powerful. They're extremely powerful. And it's proven that our expectations shape the reality, our physical and emotional reality in many ways and at many levels. When we expect to have a hardship, we typically experience a hardship. I think most of us are aware of that. It's referred to sometimes as a self-fulfilling prophecy of expectation. I know that seems like a long one, but I've heard that many, many times over the years. But what if we take on a mindset of ease or a mindset of simplicity, and we choose to expect simplicity, ease, rather than the difficulties or the complexity of any given situation? This shift in our mindset, It's a proven key to unlocking more creative, more efficient, and effective problem solving. It's used in business a lot. As individuals, we don't always tend to take things from one part of our life and utilize them in other parts to simplify life. Okay? When we do this, when we shift this mindset, it actually results in a smoother path of achieving any goal or any desired outcome that we want. And like I said, it's proven. So why don't we use it? Well, this leads us into the next tip that we want to talk about, and we're going to call it success stories. So why would I call success stories a tip? Why would I say success stories or something we can use? I'll put it simply, to better ourselves, to simplify situations we go through. Well, it's because we relate to stories, right? People relate to stories. That's why we love movies. That's a big reason why a lot of people like songs, because songs tell stories. And there's countless stories of people who've chosen the path of least resistance, right? We all know that phrase, the path of least resistance. So why don't we do it more often? It's not done out of laziness. It's actually, it's a form of using our wisdom, right? There's a word we don't actually engage with enough. We hear it in quotes and we think of it as a cliche, but it's a wise person that learns to focus on simplicity and on ease in any situation as opposed to complexity or difficulty. So again, there's a ton of stories out there. Okay. These people, they simply simplified, they simply broke down their approach to find a more clear, a more direct route to get to whatever their desired outcome is. Again, it's something that's used in sports. It's something that's used in business a lot. Matter of fact, let me give you a great example. I believe James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, I believe he used this one in that book. I've read a couple of his books. I think it was Atomic Habits, but the story that I want to share with you is about Dave Brailsford. So back in 2003, whether you heard of him or not, he was brought in by the British cycling team as a performance coach. And of course, any of you out there in sports, a lot of the time when you're dealing with sports, it's the primary focus are huge goals, tons of effort. You just got to work. But rather than focusing on these huge goals or these massive training efforts, what Dave did is he actually had the team focus on what he referred to as marginal gains. What do I mean by that? Or what did he mean by that? It's literally 1% improvements, 1% at a time. That's all that the team was looking for. Okay. The key to it is that they implemented many of them repeatedly, day after day. I'm talking things ultra simple, as simple as a better pillow. So they slept better at night. Better food, or should I say better food? I believe, if I'm recalling it correctly, it was better food ingredients, right? So that, they had more energy, felt healthier. A better angle on the seat of their bikes, which means they have, more power in their pedaling stroke. It's a more comfortable. So if you're feeling more comfortable on a long bike ride, those of us that have ridden for many, many miles at a time, it makes a huge difference. And you think about it, 1% gains. What in the world does that mean? Like, how's that going to help me? But after 100 years or more than 100 years of that team, winning virtually no major events to speak of, with that type of focus They dominated that sport for the next 10 years. Why? What about it made such a big difference? It was simplicity. It was the simplicity of all of it. Every single one of those individuals was able to perform because they took the difficulties, they took the challenge, they took the immensity, the weight of making those improvements and got rid of it. 1% in all these little areas, repeated over and over and over. So, how do we actually implement practical strategies? That's the next area that I want to talk about. Again, we start by looking at the tasks that are involved and asking ourselves, how can this be made easier? Keep the process of simplifying simple. Pausing for effect again. If we're trying to simplify something, we can't make the process of doing that difficult or overwhelming. It defeats the purpose. One of the ways is something that most people are familiar with. It's called the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule is what a lot of people call it. And this is how we use it in a case like this. We focus on what brings us the most significant results with the least amount of complexity. So for those of you in sports and that are into this hard pushing mindset, I'm not saying effort. I'm saying the highest level of results with the lowest level or the least amount of complexity, and let go of everything else. Everything else that you can let go of, do it. Let go of it. Another thing we want to look at in that is practicing mindfulness. What do I mean by that? Well, how do you know if you're implementing these 1% wins? How do you know if you're focusing on what gives you the best result with the least amount of complexity? We do it by practicing mindfulness. It helps us stay grounded. It helps us stay present. It comes back to saying, I'm about to do this task. How can I make this task easier? Okay. Don't shy away from delegating. A lot of us do that. We don't want to hand something off to someone else. We don't want to ask for help. Okay. But by doing that, we're eliminating unnecessary complexities, unnecessary efforts that other people can help or can handle for us. So I hope that all makes sense there. Maybe I should have warned you to take notes at the beginning, huh? So the last thing I want to talk, well, not the last thing, but the next thing that I want to run by you here real quick is what we call the challenge of change, or what I call the challenge of change. I can't say we have never heard anybody else term it that way, but plain and simple, I want to acknowledge that shifting from a complexity or a, life is hard mindset and shifting to a simplicity or a mindset of ease in and of itself can be a challenge. It's not easy for people to do. It is simple. It's not easy though, because we're so conditioned to think things are hard. Remember, transitioning your mindset, it's its own journey, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's not something you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, wow, I've completely changed my, my mindset on this. It takes some time. It takes some focus, and it's important to start with the small things. We want to simplify a single process first, a single thought, and let those things ripple outwards and create momentum. Remember the British cycling team, what did they start with? Better pillows. Why? What the heck does a pillow have to do with cycling. Well, it resulted in better sleep. What does better sleep result in? More energy, more focus, and on and on and on. Better food ingredients. What does better food do for us? We might like the junk food, but better food and better ingredients gives us more energy, more health, more vitality, more focus, all these things. Think about it. Better shoes. We've all gone from a pair of shoes that were so-so, they were average, and all of a sudden we put on a pair of shoes that they're just the most comfortable pairs of shoes we've ever had, right? I hope you've experienced that. It's a whole different ball game going from something that, whatever, okay, it gets you by, to a pair of shoes that are truly, truly comfortable, that truly offer you support. I mean, your feet feel better, your legs feel better, your back feels better, you feel more energy. There's so many benefits to it. These are the small little improvements, and we can all make these too. Okay. Each one of these offers a multitude of benefits. And the final tip that I wanted to offer or share with you guys is probably the most important. I'm not even going to say probably. It's absolutely the most important. And it's an invitation to implement certain action steps. Okay. Let's take action today. Identify one area in your life where you've been expecting, or maybe even inviting, a little bit of difficulty into that experience, and share it. Share it in the comments. Why am I asking you to do this? Number one, if we don't take action, nothing changes. Number two, typically if we try to do it all on our own, very little changes. But together, we can approach this challenge, this area of difficulty, with a fresh set of eyes. We can look at it from a perspective of seeking simplicity. So share in the comments, and we'll get some responses to help walk through it, to help find some areas where we can make that particular situation or that struggle a little bit easier, and allow that to create and gain some momentum. And then you can actually come back and share with us what you found. And if it's a compelling story and something that you're really willing to share, maybe we can revisit this and actually bring you on to one of the podcast episodes and walk through that process as a way to encourage and inspire other people to do the same. So I want to thank you again, as always, for joining us here on Life Design. We truly appreciate you listening in. We truly appreciate you engaging with us. So please be sure to share this episode, this podcast, subscribe so that you can join us on every episode, and be sure to engage. That's how we pay this forward. That's what this whole podcast is about, is to create engagement. And, we do truly appreciate it. The more you engage, the better chance you'll also have in potentially being invited as a guest on the podcast, if that is something that you would be interested in. And how cool would that be, right? So again, I look forward to sharing more with you. I hopefully look forward to meeting some of you very soon. And until then, as always, live awesome and enjoy your journey.